my brand new Lambo.
When we're talking about the distribution of a data set, we like to have some form of measuring the location of where that data falls. Three measures that you're likely already familiar with are the mean, or the arithmetic average of the data set, which we abbreviate with x bar, the median, which is the middle of the data as when it is arranged in ascending order from smallest to largest, which we abbreviate median, subscript, whatever variable we are measuring the median of, and the mode is the value which occurs most often in the data set. Sometimes if a data set has a value or more than one value that occurs most often, we refer to it as bimodal or multimodal. It can have more than one mode. Aside from these three measures of center of the overall spread of the data, we can also measure the relative location of a single observation relative to the rest of the points in the data. One way to do this is by percentile. The percentile of a distribution of observations is just the percent of observations which is strictly less than that observed value. For example, if you're the fourth tallest person in a group of 20 individuals, 80% of the data set is shorter than you are. That means that you would fall in the 80th percentile. That is because the sum of the number of individuals less than you out of the total number of individuals results in 80%. Here's another example of that. Here's a collection of data from the 2014 SAT exam with the percentile rankings and the corresponding score for critical reading, mathematics, and writing. Writing was a component of the exam this year. Say I wanted to know what score would put you in the 94th percentile for math. Well, let me go up to the percentile rankings for mathematics and find 94. And then this would correspond to a score of 710. That tells me that a score of 710 would put you in the 94th percentile. That means that 94% of individuals scored less than 710 on the mathematics section of the exam this year. If you wanted to know what percent of students did as well or better than Will on the critical reading, if Will earned a 560 on the critical reading, well, critical reading percentiles is given in the second column, and 560 is right here. So 560 puts Will at the 70th percentile, meaning he outperformed 70% of students taking the exam this year. So if I wanted to know how many did as well or better than Will, it would be the remaining 30% of students. Because if 70% did lower or performed lower on this portion of the exam, then the remaining 30% will have done as well or better. All of the measures of center can be calculated using your calculator by simply typing the data set into your stats menu editor. Here I have a collection of test scores represented by the value x and the corresponding frequency of each test score. What I'm going to do is to write each of those values into a list. I'm going to put the x values into list 1 and the y values into list 2 in my statistics list editor. To do that, I'm going to go over to my calculator, hit statistics, and highlight the edit, and hit enter. I've already entered my data values, but you should enter yours. Into list 1, you'll want to type each individual observed value into my first list, and into my second list, I have entered my frequency values. Once you've done that, you can quit out of the editor, and to calculate the statistics, I'm going to press Stat. Only now I will press the right arrow over to get to the calculation screen. And I want to calculate one variable statistics, which is the first option, so I will press Enter to pull that up. Now, if you have Stat Wizards, you will get a menu that looks something like this. I need to identify what my observation list is and what my frequency list is so that my calculator can appropriately calculate my values. So my observation list we typed into list 1. Here mine came up as list 3, so I need to clear that and type in the correct list. Lists are the second feature of each of the number buttons. So list 1 is the second feature of option 1. So I will hit second 1, and it will pull list 1 into my list editor. And then in this wizard, I'm going to then also tell it the frequencies list, which is in list 2. So I'll hit second 2 to pull up the frequencies list, and then tell it to calculate by pressing enter on calculate. It will then give me a series of statistical measures. The very first being the mean, which is 80.588, which I'm going to round to the 10th. So I will record that as the mean is equivalent to 80.6. The other value I need is the median. Now it looks like the median did not come up on this screen, but in fact it is there. If you notice that it has a little arrow telling me there is more values, and if you scroll down on this menu, you will get more statistical measures, the median being 80. Okay. The one thing that this menu will not tell me is a measure of relative position, say for 77. For that, I'm going to have to do some calculating. So I'm going to quit out of this menu, hitting second quit, take me back to the main screen, and I need to calculate this percentile, some of it by hand, but I'll use my calculator as an assistant. Percentile, if you recall, is the percentage of values in a data set falling below the stated observation. So in this case, I am looking for the percent of observations below 77. So that would be on this list 75 through 60. And the frequency of each of those observations is recorded here. So I will need to sum up the observations given and take that as a ratio of the total number of observations. So the percentile will be the sum of the observations below 77 out of the total sum of all observed values in this case, which will give me 0.29. Therefore, 77 is in the 29th percentile of test scores for these data.